everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, along with Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Political stakes are high as President Trump and the GOP now try to tackle tax reform after failing to repeal Obamacare. Will they succeed? The president made his way to Indianapolis this afternoon to roll out a sweeping plan to overhaul the tax code.
We're going to cut taxes for the middle class, make the tax code simpler and more fair for everyday Americans, and we are going to bring back the jobs and wealth that have left our country, and most people thought left our country for good. We want tax reform that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, pro-family, and yes, tax reform that is pro-American.
The president's plan would slash the corporate tax rate to 20% from 35% and lower the top individual tax rate from 39.6% to 35%. Here's more from Mr. Trump a short while ago.
It's time for Washington to learn from the wisdom of Indiana. We need Washington to promote American jobs instead of obstructing them. That is what I've been working to achieve every day since I took office. That is what I talked about on the campaign trail. Already we're seeing the results of an economic policy that finally puts America first.
Okay, so Dana, now a lot of people have an opinion about this because there are people who are very strong supporters of the president, of his campaign and the policies that he was planning. And one of the big things was tax reform. They definitely need to be able to achieve something because especially coming on the heels of yet another failed attempt with health care. How did you feel the president did today in terms of his messaging, and what about the content?
Well, I think the rollout has been fairly good. I think that he had to give this speech on the teleprompter, but I hope that he doesn't do a ton of them on them because I think because tax reform hasn't been done really well in 30 years. And I think his ability to sell it in plain spoken words in the way that he does is actually probably one of the best things he has going for them. I think that the text of the plan and of the speech, if you read it on paper, is a little bit in the weeds, but you can get basically get the gist. They are going to have obstacles. Already the left is painting this as tax cuts for the rich, and this is only going to benefit the wealthy. That is not true, but it's hard to argue it on the other side. I think that he started to do that today, and I think based on what I've heard, that the White House has a pretty good plan to keep their coalition together in order to try to advance this. But I really do think the rich are going to end up paying more. So if you are in the tax code or in the zip code where you really wanted Hillary Clinton to win, like, you should be glad because you thought the rich should pay more. And under this plan, they are going to end up paying more. Okay. So, Greg, do you think they're going to get that they get the messaging and actually understand the contents of this tax reform, or just be obstructionists and say, we don't like it no matter what it is, even if it attacks the rich because President Trump is putting it forward?
No matter how, whenever they say they're simplifying something, it's never truly simplified. They still use jargon that I don't understand. There's something about you'll be taxed at a rate of 0. What does that mean? You're not being taxed? Because why don't you just say you're not going to be taxed? Right. But taxed at a rate of 0 goes way over my head. I'm not that bright on this stuff, but at least, come on, just simplify it, really simplify it. The problem I have with this is the order in which this administration tackled their issues. For example, it's like with Obamacare or tax reform, I would have loved it if they would tax reform first. They chose the wrong lane at the supermarket. The Obamacare lane did not move, and here you go. But if you just went to the tax reform line, you would have just zoomed right through.
3 items or less.
3 items or less. It was
express line.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens at the airport too, and you're like, oh, I knew I should have.
You're always looking at something. You're always going, how did that happen?
And
That's
you're
not
peeking
fair.
over at the other line, and you're like, yeah, you're already in there.
Looking at your wife or your husband, like, should we go? Should we move?
Yeah,
so you got to split them up. One here and one in that
and then the other
line.
line opens up.
Yes.
Yeah, we do a lot of grocery shopping this table.
I just tell him I'm on the 5, and I get right to that.
If I said that where I live, I go to the back of the line.
Yeah,
right. That's 5 privilege, Juan.
Is that right?
That's it.
Check your privilege.
That's what it is. Jesse, you were a little bit disappointed, a little bit critical of the president before about tax reform. How did you feel about it today? Because you wanted to see some, meaty cuts.
I do. I still want to see those meaty cuts. I'm not happy about a few things. He's holding out the possibility of still raising taxes on the very wealthy. This is Obama's third term.
And you plan to be one.
This is not what people signed up for. I don't know where he's coming off. I guess this is the populist thing or the deficit hawk deal. I don't get it. I think it's maybe defense against. I don't think a lot of his core base want to soak the rich. I don't. I think they would like tax cuts for themselves, but I don't think they're in it to get back at the greedy billionaires. I also don't like that he's only cutting the top rate from 39 to 35. I think it's too timid. Reagan slashed the top rate in his 2 terms from 70 to 28. To sell it as this is a Reagan-esque tax cut, I think is incorrect. Also, they should be cutting capital gains and dividend taxes because I think that helps older Americans. I do like some things, though. I do like the income tax reductions as a general point. It's our money. It's not the government's money. The increasing of the child tax credit and the doubling of the standard deduction, I think that helps kind of lower middle income people and poor Americans. Some of them will pay zero. I, again, don't understand what that means, but it sounds good. Eliminates the death tax. That's straight up communism. That should have been out a very long time ago. And the president really is selling this mostly as the corporate tax rate reduction is going to be the key driver to growth and to job creation and to wage growth. And then you're also going to bring back money from overseas as well and invest more in America. It's an America first tax cut. I think there's a lot of good things. There's some bad things, but on the whole, it's much better than what we have now.
Okay, so there's room for improvement, you think, but it's definitely going in the right direction.
But it's only going to get tougher. It's not going to. If this is your opening bid, it's not going to get better.
That's why he wanted to open the bid at 15% on the corporate side. And he's still stewing about it.
Right. He's still stewing. Okay, so Juan, Dana said there's some things here that the Democrats and the liberals should be, okay with it. It shouldn't be too displeasing to them. Are you feeling pleased or displeased?
Well, it's sort of, curious because I don't know that it's, I think it'd be great if we had tax reform in this country, Kimberly. I really do. I think people would like a more simple, direct way to know what taxes they're paying, why they're paying them, and to feel that they are going for a good use by the government. So on all those things, I say great. And in fact, President Trump during the campaign promised that this would be tax reform, that it wouldn't simply be about some tax cuts that would then open the door to what's been described here as tax cuts for the very rich. And by the way, according to the polls, NBC Wall Street Journal, it's like 55% of Americans oppose any kind of cut for the corporate tax rate, and they also think that, in fact, the rich should pay more. So I don't know, but that's what the American people think. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, so the Republicans have given up on tax reform. Now all they want to do is tax cuts. And the driver, as Jesse was saying, is corporate tax cuts. And the argument there, which is an interesting one, is, hey, this economy would be doing even better. We'd knock them out. We would be the global titan if we could lower our tax rate and be competitive with tax rates in Europe and the rest of the world. So, but then when you look at it, you discover, hey, wait a second, our tax rates aren't out of line. Guess what? You look at the deductions and the write-offs and our corporate tax rate. In fact, what really galls me, Jesse, Mr. Populist, is that there's about half or more of American corporations that pay zero. If you were puzzled, Greg, this is your answer. Zero means you pay no tax.
Right, that's because all the corporate lobbyists down at the swamp sit in there in these rooms and then rewrite all these things to carve out the loopholes and the incentives. That's how the swamp works. So it's puzzling to me because I think the president wants something. He's given up on tax reform. He wants tax cuts, but he's opened the door to Democrats having a very effective argument.
All right, well, this tax reform announcement comes right on the heels of another health care defeat, as we discussed, for Republicans. But the president, he's not losing hope.
I was hoping this would be put on my desk right after we won the election and I'd come in and sign, but it didn't work that way. There are a couple of people that I won't say anything. But early next year, when reconciliation kicks back in any event, long before the November election, we're going to have a vote and we're going to be able to get that through, and I think we'll actually get it through very easily.
Okay, so Greg, you were saying earlier that you take issue strongly, not with the use of the term zero, but with the order in which the president tried to achieve his reform.
It's like you were faced with two choices: a beautiful swimming pool and the La Brea tar pit. And it's like every time you go to healthcare, it's the La Brea tar pit.
Right.
People in California know what that is. It's like it's just a big basically tar pits. Yes, we used to go there as kids. That was where my parents took me.
That explains so much.
Yes, that was our
You
summer.
weren't supposed to eat it.
Our summer vacation.
That was your community pool. Okay.
But here's the issue. What was so wrong with the Graham Cassidy bill? Why does this thing have to be perfect? Because you're never going to get a perfect bill. And so instead you're going to sit here and one person's not going to like this, one person. So the perfect bill will not exist. This will not happen.
Wait a second. Did you just say you don't think tax reform will happen?
No, I was talking about Graham Cassidy.
He segued. He did a little segue.
I
The tar
shifted.
pits. Dana, so it was interesting because the president mentioning this, he seemed a little bit, upset that perhaps this was something that he wanted to do, which was and we talked about that.
But I like it that he's keeping the door open because that basically gives him a chance to sort of look ahead. Also because he knows that a lot of Republican donors are sitting there thinking, "Are you kidding me? Like we don't have anything at this point." So he can blame the establishment and the people on Capitol Hill and the swamp. The truth is he'll have to pay the price for that. But I do think that the Democrats still might play ball on tax reform. If the president continues to press in these red states that have Democratic senators that are up for election, he might be able to have enough in order to get tax reform done. It might not be what Reagan was able to do, but that's because there's not that much room to cut. The tax rates aren't at 70%. You could go from 70 to 30 when you were in the 80s. Right now, you just can't raise enough revenue in order to pay for the things that we want. I also think that we're having a bigger discussion about health care and tax reform, but we're not really having it here. But the people are having it, and that is, what kind of government do you want? What do you expect them to be able to pay for? And how much do you think the Americans should contribute to their government? Those are bigger issue questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, why are children so special? Tax credits. You get a tax credit for having a kid. I want a tax credit for my bar bill because that's every bit as expensive as a child.
I think
who invited W.C. Fields?
If I disappeared from this earth, 4 or 5 bars would go out of business. So I could say I want a tax credit for my bar bill.
Okay, really relatable problems, Greg. Okay, Jesse.
Well, what? No, it's a point about kids. Why do you get a tax credit for a kid?
Because that's repopulating the country.
Kids are
But why is that part?
Come up and be doctors and serve in the military.
Why should that be part of a tax plan? Oh, you're going to be rewarded? Maybe you shouldn't have kids.
Families.
Oh my God.
Procreation is a good thing.
Look at Juan's face. Is like
civilized countries.
I didn't think anybody was anti-kid, man. Come on.
Taking a stroke.
Oh, they're little monsters, Juan. They're little monsters.
Some of them don't grow up to be bigger than little monsters.
I'm saving the world from future me's.
You know what? I really hate to do this. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to bring this up, but I am. Dana predicted Graham Cassidy is going to pass.
Well,
it was the second time. And she predicted the bill in the summer was going to pass.
I did. I had hope and faith. But the president left the door open, so if it does pass next year, save this clip and we'll play it again.
All right.
Hey, so what are you going to say? And Juan was right all along?
No, I'll never say that.
Okay.
No, he's not going to go that far. His therapy hasn't
He just wants to
exceeded
pick
that
on
point.
Dana.
Listen, she's a glass, half full. Come on, people. Come up. Anti-establishment candidate Roy Moore scores a big victory over Luther Strange in Alabama. What does that mean for the GOP? What does it mean for the president? Stay with us.
We have a winner in Alabama. Roy Moore, the former Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court, beat President Trump's pick to vie for Jeff Sessions' former seat in the Senate. He backed Moore's opponent, Luther Strange. The headlines on some of the major newspapers today call it a blow to the GOP establishment and the president's clout. Here's Roy's take.
I think the people of Alabama know me and they understand what I stand for, and I certainly support President Trump's agenda. And that, yes, I'm an outsider, not part of the establishment. I don't think the president knew me, and I think that when he gets to know me, that he'll understand that I do support a very conservative agenda for this country, and I think that he will back me. And I've received a call from him, and that's what he said he would do.
Speaking earlier today, the president said Moore will be a great senator, and everything's going to work out. It was a big loss for Mitch McConnell, who also backed Strange. Moore said he'll get past the majority leader's snub if he wins in December, with some conditions.
As long as he stands for a conservative agenda and what we promised the people as Republicans, I'll work with anyone.
Okay. So, Kimberly.
I love it so positive.
I mean, this guy's an interesting guy, West Point grad, Vietnam veteran, kickboxer, ranch hand. He dabbled in poetry.
Who hasn't?
Real renaissance.
Who hasn't dabbled? God. What kind of splash do you see Moore making in the U.S. Senate?
You know, I think he's probably going to try and go in there and be respectful of his colleagues, but at the same time, he shows that he's somebody that's not afraid to stand up and speak his mind and you know, buck the trend if he feels that he's, you know, in the right. So, you know, do I think it's a situation where McConnell and the rest of them that supported Strange, like, oh, yay, no, but nevertheless, they've got to be able to work together to achieve common goals. Do I think that the president's heartbroken over it? No, I don't. I think that the president is like, look, this is no problem, and I think he really means it, that he's going to work with them, and of course he's going to probably do everything he can, more than make up for it with some amazing, you know, rally that's going to go like 45 to an hour over in time about him when he returns, you know, to Alabama to make sure to clinch the victory. Because like we said, there's going to be a lot of money dumped in to make sure to try to see if a Democrat can win. But I think it's going to, you know, it's going to work out. I think it would have been better if they were all on the same team and unified and picked the same person. I'll be honest with you and say that didn't happen. But look, the sun rose again.
That's true.
The day after.
It's still probably going to be a Republican senator from Alabama. McConnell didn't really fare well in this race, pumped a whole lot of money in there, and his association with Strange probably hurt Strange. McConnell's got an 18% approval rating in Kentucky.
True. And in addition to that, Luther Strange was appointed by the disgraced outgoing governor of Alabama. And that story is a doozy.
Oh, that guy.
Look at that. It's really bad. So there was an association there already that probably for most people in Alabama, like they wanted a clean break. And I almost called him senator, giving him a promotion. Mr. Moore was already very popular all throughout Alabama, so you might argue that they might have just gone with Moore from the beginning and saved that money, but I do think that the agenda that Moore was talking about, it's pretty secure. I mean, I don't think that Alabama is going to vote for a Democrat, though Juan is looking questioningly. Here's what I would say to the Democrats: don't waste your money. If you think that Moore is so crazy town that he's going to be a problem for the Republicans, don't try to beat him. You're probably not going to beat him, and just let him go. And then if you want to tag other Republicans with whatever he says or does, go for it.
Do the Democrats have any money left after they sank about $50 million into the Georgia race?
They are raking in so much money they don't even know how to spend it.
The DNC's not raising a lot of cash.
The left-wing
All
groups.
The organizations?
Yes.
Gutfeld, this is the Ten Commandments guy. You must love him.
Yeah. He's definitely old school. I think, didn't he? He says, you should. Did he once say you can go to jail for being gay? Was he that guy?
Perhaps.
Yeah. Maybe he's grown. Who knows? I think, you know, Donald Trump is a different kind of Republican. He was, Trump was for gay marriage before Obama was. But Trump just did what we all did last year: bet on the wrong horse.
Yeah.
So he just, he kind of did, and we all bounced back, and it probably is a strong candidate, but I don't think there's a huge message here saying that this is a blow to the GOP establishment. I don't see that. I just see a group of people picking one guy over the other because they knew him more.
Yeah,
that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Is he simplifying it too much, or you think there's more to this one?
Well, to me, it's fascinating politics, because I think that Donald Trump is the lead player in American politics by far.
Right.
And yet Donald Trump could not beat populist politics as run by Bannon, Palin, Hannity, Ingram. I could go on,
well,
right?
I think you have to give Moore some credit. I mean, he did have a very high popularity in his state.
But
he won all but like a handful of the 67 counties.
By the way, what was with pulling a gun out? I mean, this kind of stuff just
Well, he was just proving that he was.
In Alabama, that might work. Well,
I don't. He just pulls a gun out at a press conference. What is this? I have to say he's a Second Amendment guy because the NRA backs Strange. What? Don't say what?
No.
Don't mention it. I didn't mention it. Let's pretend I didn't say a word. It didn't happen.
Well,
but I
we'll
do want to
explain
make
you in the commercial.
All right, I just want to make this point. That Doug Jones, who's being so quickly dismissed at this table, the Democrat who will run against Strange in December, was a former U.S. attorney under Bill Clinton. Joe Biden's already in there making robocalls and all the rest, going at it for him. Big money is going in. He's the guy that finally won a conviction in the bombing of the little girls in that Birmingham church. So he has some energy behind him at this moment. He says people in Alabama are tired of being embarrassed by the kind of politics practiced by a man who believes that the U.S. Constitution,
Joe, by the way, a Biden robocall is just him in a robe.
I also like how Trump deleted all the tweets where he endorsed Big Luther.
Yes.
It's like it never happened.
Well, don't endorse based on height. I mean, I could never win office.
He doesn't do it with tall people. Comey, Big Luther, not a good track record. Hillary Clinton launching one of the most irresponsible attacks to date on President Trump. We'll roll the tape next.
Thanks for staying with us. Inauguration Day was 8 months ago, but a lot of folks on my side of the aisle are still having a very hard time coming to terms with Donald Trump's presidency, particularly that Hillary Clinton. Here's her latest dig at the man who got the job she wanted.
I don't think he really values democracy, Charlie.
Okay, so he doesn't value democracy.
No, I don't. He's
not a Democrat, little d.
No, he's not. He's a top-down guy, and
He's an authoritarian.
he has tendencies toward authoritarianism.
So he's no different than Putin.
Well, he, hopefully hasn't ordered the killing of people and journalists and the like.
An authoritarian, Kimberly?
I don't know. I mean, this is like Groundhog Day, right? I mean, I don't know what's going on with this book tour. It's like never ending. And I get it. She wants to get out there. She's selling books. Okay. But at a certain point, I mean, you lose any little bit of credibility left when you're sitting there comparing, the president of the United States to Putin. I mean, where does she kind of get off doing this?
But do you buy at all the argument that he's a businessman who believes in top-down structures,
I think that's
not
very
democratic
different
structures?
than comparing him to Putin. That's more like, okay, he has a philosophy of kind of like best practices and being a CEO and, that type of thing. So that's very different than saying he's somebody who, murders people and journalists and whatever and comparing to the conduct of Putin.
But businessmen are evil. Remember that. To a left, it's no different than
Wall
Putin.
Street movie, yes, Gordon Gekko.
What do you think?
Well, I think that Donald Trump has not tried to subvert the system. Okay, so when you are Putin, basically you say, oh, yeah, those term limit things, those don't exist anymore. The age limit doesn't exist anymore. Things have to go through Congress. No. President Trump is working through the system. And if you're concerned about any of his policies, you look at what happened with the travel ban, initially rejected by the courts. They reworked it, put it forward. Healthcare doesn't pass twice. Tax reform, he's going through the Congress. He's doing all the things. I don't see the autocratic tendencies that she sees.
All right. Well, it's not only Hillary Clinton. Take a look at this interview, also by Charlie Rose, with Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
You think sexism played a role in that campaign?
Do I think so?
Yes.
I have no doubt that it did.
Yeah. Do you think it was decisive?
That it was
decisive. In other words, if Hillary Clinton had been a man, she would have won that election going away.
There's so many things that might have been decisive, but that was a major factors.
Now, I'm afraid to do this, but you got to do it. So, Jesse, is it the case that sexism decided this election?
I just fell asleep listening to Peter Ginsburg. Wow, that was electrifying. And with Charlie Rose, too. There's two of them. They should really go on tour together. No, listen, she might have a point about sexism, but it might be the opposite point. What if Hillary benefited from sexism? What if more women voted for Hillary because she was a woman that wouldn't have otherwise? And I don't think the country's sexist, and you can never quantify that either, because would someone gonna leave a polling booth and tell a pollster, yeah, I don't want a woman in the White House? That'll never happen. So it's pie in the sky. A lot of women, besides Hillary, could run and probably get elected in this country. Oprah, Michelle Obama's popularity is like 80%. Marissa Mayer at Google, Diane Sawyer, I think, is a lock for the Democratic nominee.
But they haven't been attacked.
Well, I mean, I'll do some damage if she's the nominee. Trust me. I'm saying, there's a lot of great women out there that could probably overperform.
Say on the other side, too, Condoleezza Rice, for the Republicans.
Yeah, her name's out there. She's a great candidate.
All right, but Greg, I mean, you watched Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I know that you took her so seriously. I want to hear what you think.
That was an amazing. I mean, it's Charlie Rose and Ruth Bader Ginsburg talking to each other is amazing. It's like being at the early bird special at the Grand Round or something. I don't know. Sexism did play a role, but it helped Hillary get as far as she did.
Yeah.
If Hillary wasn't female, there probably would have been a President Sanders or nominee Sanders
Biden.
or Biden. but she got it because she was owed it. It was her turn.
Yeah.
It was her turn, her time. She had to be the historical first, and that created a shield around her, not from the Republicans, but from her allies who could not criticize her. So you couldn't come after her because she was the woman candidate. She deserved it, and it allowed women to help cheat with her. Like you had women giving her questions because we're sisters. Hey, this is I'm going to help you out here. I'm not going to help Sanders, but I'm going to help you out with the questions for the debate.
Wait a second. You guys, you don't give any credence to the idea that it's difficult for a woman politician to win office.
You said there was. You said there was some sexism.
Yes, but that's what helped her get as far. So I'm disagreeing. No, I don't. I think that it's easier now for a woman to run for office. It's easier now for minorities to run for office than ever before.
Oh, well, that's true. But I think that there is also, especially among Republicans, conservatives, traditionalists, if you will, a real resistance. I'm not sure.
But don't you think that Sarah,
Democrat anyway.
Don't you think Sarah Palin could say the same, that sexism played a role in her being attacked and that campaign not being successful?
And I don't think that's fair to label conservative Republicans and men and say that they would be sexist and not want to support a woman candidate. I think they want to support a strong candidate that holds their values, that's fiscally conservative, that believes in smaller government and supports our military. I mean, that.
Okay, so one last point to you then, Kimberly. When you hear President Trump as a campaigner say nasty woman or talk about grabbing women, don't you think, well, gee, if I'm an evangelical, I don't think I can. But guess what? They went for President Trump.
I'm sure that they didn't like that they didn't feel it was appropriate, but maybe they believe still on balance that he was the best candidate based on his platform and his policies.
Can I, just to the point about the autocratic criticism, which actually I had mentioned a couple of times when Trump was running, I'm going, this is a guy that he likes strong men. He talks about strong men. And I go, there is a possibility, but when you watch what's happening now, you couldn't be further from the truth. You're seeing more protests, more criticism. Nobody's going to jail. The American public is learning more about checks and balances under Trump than ever before. Yeah. And then when you think about under Obama, a filmmaker was put in jail. Yeah. Journalists were investigated. Yeah. Fox News journalist James Rosen. We had people that happened under Obama. Under Trump, we know everything that's going on because he's telling us everything.
And didn't Hillary tie up reporters? I remember seeing them all.
Wasn't that funny? I think Bill did that too, but that was at a party.
I think you forget about the president's anxiety and anger at leaks at the moment in the investigations that are ongoing.
But he's not doing anything about it.
Well, that's an investigation. He's got sessions on it. Ahead, North Korea is apparently stumped by President Trump. My man Gregory's monologue next.
Side shot just depressed me.
I like
put on about it's bad. So North Korea is starting to sweat. Officials from that hermit hellhole have been reaching out to American experts to learn more about our president. According to the Washington Post, they contacted people who've worked under previous administrations. Now, why would they do that? Are they curious or are they scared? Do they think maybe Trump can be reasoned with? Or do they wonder if he might push a button? The point is, they don't know. We don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And that's great. Nobody knows anything. It's like MSNBC. Yep. If there's one promise that Trump really nailed, is keeping our foes guessing. So now you have a tyrannical regime whose country is literally in the dark, now in the dark even more, on Trump. It's the odd charm of the president. His thoughts are well known. He tweets about them daily, but his actions are unpredictable. He really is the guy at the end of the bar you don't want to tick off or make eye contact. And it's not that this guy might be nuts. It's that he means business and may be nuts. How refreshing is that to have the bad guys worry about us for once rather than the reverse? The question, what if Trump's crazy, now replaces what if Kim Jong-un is crazy? So now they're the ones wandering around town frantically asking questions about the new sheriff, wondering if he'll really shoot first. If they asked me, I'd say yes, but really, who knows? Okay, Dana, just a policy question. Are you allowed to take meetings, like if the North Koreans contact you, Dana Perino, because you worked, and they want, would you take that meeting?
If the government, like a government official?
Yeah.
I would take the meeting and call the State Department at the same time, and I might even call it before and say, These guys have asked to meet with me. Do you want me to meet with them? I can, and can I be helpful to you? I read the New Yorker cover story a couple of weeks ago by Evan Osnos, I think is how you pronounce his name. It was fascinating. He got to go to North Korea with 2 handlers from the UN.
Right.
They take him there, and at every turn, because their job is to explain Trump to Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
So instead of just basically taking him around to see all the sights, they keep asking him, this thing in the paper here, is this normal?
Yeah.
And the reporter ends up being the one trying to explain. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I recommend the article.
No one will read it. But anyway, Jesse, why do they need to call if they have Dennis Rodman? Don't you think Dennis Rodman, who's a friend of Trump, would already have insight into this, interesting leader?
Yeah, I'd say send Rodman back.
Yes.
And maybe have him not come back. Listen, the North Koreans and the Americans have something in common. We both can't understand Trump. He's just being unpredictable, and he's keeping them on their toes, and that's a new challenge for the North Koreans. They're used to having to interpret, this coded diplomatic language, and now the best part of the article is they have these experts at Trump tweets, and they can recite years and years of Trump tweets, and they have an encyclopedic knowledge of it. It's fantastic. Meanwhile, Trump's just up there on Air Force One knocking out tweets to Rocket Man in between taco bowls, and he's like throwing them for a loop. It's fantastic. I love it. I think it's great. They're finally off balance in North Korea.
Right. This out there.
Yeah.
You got to admit, Juan, it's good to keep your foes second guessing, right? You do that. You do that, I'm sure.
Is that right? I don't know. I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it'd be nice. It'd be nice since we are the big boys. We're the superpower. If we, in fact, people just have confidence in what we do. It's so interesting to me, though, that they would do this. And by the way, it wasn't they were just going to every American or politician or expert. They were going to Republicans.
Yeah.
They wanted Republicans, and I guess they think Republicans more intimate, more not. Of course, after Alabama, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. But to me, it's so telling, and this is contrary to my thoughts, so I just tell it to you because I'm going to be fair, that when the U.S. flew those fighter jets high in the sky over South Korea, but close to North Korea, no response, just a threat from the North Koreans.
Right.
As if, we talk about how they are quick to anger. They're not exactly being so quick at the moment, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think you just said that Trump is doing a fantastic job in a very subtle way.
You see why I can't be fair on this?
So, Kimberly,
Gosh.
if North Korea contacted you, what would you tell them? If they said, can you tell us something? Can you tell us about...
Say, okay, everyone thinks they won the lottery. No. Yeah, what would I would obviously contact the government, like Dana said, and the State Department. And
but what would you tell them? If you wanted to give an honest...
Tell them?
Yeah, if you wanted...
I love this question.
If you would give advice to if North Korea goes, what can you tell us to Trump? What do we need to know? What would you say? Would you go
give up your nuclear weapons.
Yeah, give up your nuclear weapons. This will please him. If you want to talk to him early in the morning or late at night when he's best, and usually Friday after the end of a long week, and once he's up on the plane. Yeah, compliment the wall, say it's big and beautiful. Tell him that he's like President Reagan.
Yes. And that was a very big crowd out there.
Yes, and use words like tremendous. It's tremendous and huge. Yeah, I mean, look, they are spending all of this time trying to understand him. But, I think you're right. Okay, let's go on the record here. Because I think he's actually doing a good job handling them, because this just is proof that they are befuddled by the whole situation. What North Korea wants, they want President Trump to forget that Otto Warmbier was tortured and essentially murdered by them. And they want to be recognized with the prestige nationally, internationally of a nuclear power. So they're frustrated because they feel that the United States is, one, building coalitions against them. Two, President Trump's not afraid to call them out. They're getting the sanctions. Usually they're used to people kissing their bouquet and giving them what they want.
All right.
But it's true.
It is true. Bouquet. Coming up, Twitter's doing something crazy, or maybe it's a good thing. Who knows? That's next.